Hi, students. This is Dr. Gonzalez. I hope you're all doing really well and you are not too hot during this extremely rough summer weather. I don't know about you guys, but I'm extremely grateful for my air conditioner at this moment. So, I'm going to just briefly go over your assignments for this week. This week we covered correlations, and I know it was a lot of information, but I have all the confidence in the world that you can do what you need to do to be able to be successful with these assignments. So I included a little joke right here about correlation not being causation. So you can read the little cartoon there and hopefully you will all get the joke. So you have two assignments this week. The first assignment is um, a Word file that you're going to download. And I'm going to go over that assignment in just a couple of minutes. But you're going to download the assignment file, which is a Word file from Canvas. And then you're also going to need to download the correlation assignment PSYC 4370 Excel file and open it in Jamovi. Read each question and craft an answer. There are like maybe 3 questions in total where you have to I want you to snip the correlation matrix and paste it in Jamovi. And the reason why I want you to learn how to use that snip function is it produces a much more professional looking document. Some of you guys are really good at taking screenshots, but the screenshots sometimes have the entire page or the entire screen, and we don't want that. I want you to practice using this snip function because you are going to get a JPEG image of your results that you can quickly just go and paste in your document, and it looks really professional. Okay? And then, of course, when you're done, I would like you to upload that document back into Canvas. Remember, because I was late putting up your material for this week, I've extended the deadline for both of your assignments for next week. I've extended it by a couple of days. So that's just kind of an apology. I've just been incredibly swamped this past week. So let's talk about your second assignment. So for your second assignment, you're going to go into Canvas. You're going to find where it says assignment 2, exploring correlations. This is an assignment that's going to open up in a browser that looks just like an exam, but it's not. Okay. It may look like an exam. Obviously, it's not going to be labeled with exam. Okay. It's just using the same browser that we usually give our exams in, but it's not Respondus, so you're not being monitored. You can open other windows. You are free to use any resources you need to answer these questions. Okay, so just read each question carefully and then select or write the best answer. I want to make sure to emphasize something with you. This is something feedback that I'm giving in general to everyone after looking at your tests. We need to be more thorough when we write answers to certain questions. If I ask you to explain something, I want an explanation. I don't need one sentence, I need a couple of sentences. So let's put for this week a goal, a personal goal for all of us is to be a little bit more detailed when we're writing answers to questions, especially related to statistics and all that. So give me just a minute. Let me back out of this presentation. Let me open up the Word file and go over the assignment with you. The first assignment, go over that. Okay, guys, I'm going to run through how to do a correlation in Jamovi. This is my third attempt at trying to record this video because my microphone keeps running out of juice. So let's hope we can get through this with my second battery here. So I'm going to open up Jamovi, and I have a database that I'm going to play around with. And this database is about serial killers and certain traits and scores on certain things that we might associate with an increased number of victims. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to open up this fictitious database that I have acquired. And you'll see that I've got several variables here. I've got the participant ID number. I have childhood abuse score, a narcissism score, which is a personality trait, psychopathy score, which is psychopath personality trait, the family stability. So the higher the score, I would rate that family as more stable. And we're going to see if there's a correlation in there with anything. Then I have a childhood poverty level. So did they experience poverty as a child? And then I have confirmed victim count. And again, this is all fictitious, but I'm just trying to vary it up a little. So to do a correlation, you're going to go to regression and select correlation matrix. And I want to associate these variables with my confirmed victim count. So I'm going to throw that over there. And I can take any of these variables right here and place them over here to do a correlation. I could do them one at a time if I wanted to, but I'm going to actually take several of them. Do those three. I'm going to run a Pearson's correlation, and I just want to know right now if they're correlated. So if I select correlated down here, I'm looking to see if it is a two-tailed test. I'm looking for just a correlation in general. I'm going to tell it to report significance and to flag any significant correlations that they find along the way. And I can plot these things too. So I'm going to look at the plots first, just out of curiosity. And I've got a bunch of things in one place. So I might not want to do these all together because I might want to go back and look at a plot of each one of these individually. But I think you can see where one thing stands out to me more than all the others, and that is the correlation between confirmed numbers of victims and that psychopathy score. So psychopathic personality. And I see a positive relationship there. So that's telling me that, the more victims the serial killer had, the higher they scored in that psychopathic personality. So let's go look at the correlation matrix up there and see what we see. We're going to go to that score particularly, psychopathy score and confirmed victim count. And I see these asterisks right here. That's telling me this is significant. So remember, a perfect correlation would be a +1. And we're approaching that. We've got 0.834. Those three asterisks right there tell me that it is significant at the p is less than 0.001 value. So remember, when you're making that decision in rejecting or retaining your null, when you're using Jamovi output, you're going to look at that p-value every time. We're not worried about a critical value. You could go pull the table and look at it if you really wanted to, but we don't really report that in the literature. Well, like when we're writing an APA write-up, we don't really report that there. What we do report is the Pearson's R, the degrees of freedom, and whether or not it was significant using a p-value. So I see that is significant. None of my other correlations were. So there was not a correlation. There were correlations there. Absolutely. I can look down here. I've got something going on negative here. This is family stability and narcissism. That's interesting. It's almost flat. Those aren't the variables we were looking at of interest, but I can see that this has a negative correlation. So family stability and victims. So I might expect something like that. I might expect that the more stable your family is, the less victims that serial killer had. But even though I see this relationship here, if I go up to my correlation matrix and look at family stability and confirmed victim count, I do have a negative relationship, but it's not significant. I have a p-value of 0.089 and it is not starred, so that means it's not significant. So just a few things you want to watch for over here. I'm going to move some of these things back to the other side. And I want to think about what we just saw a minute ago with the correlation between variables being explored in a one versus a two-tailed exploration. So remember, when it's two-tailed, I'm looking at whether or not there's a correlation, period. Okay? I don't know, for whatever reason. I'm exploring. It could be positive. It could be negative. But I have that alpha level there, and I'm splitting my probability of finding that into two extremes. So when I know the possible direction with my alternative hypothesis, it's really good to do a one-tailed. So this time I want to take, we looked at psychopathy. I want to take narcissism and I want to put it over here. This time I want to do that right there. I want to look at a positive correlation. So this is exploring if narcissism scores are higher, would the victim count be higher? And what I find is that I have let's look at the plot. I do have a positive correlation here, but is it significant? So if I look at my matrix up here at the top, I see that it's not. My p-value is 0.160. It had to be less than 0.05 to be significant. It's not. So kind of interesting. What about childhood poverty level? I might expect a negative correlation there, and I don't see that. And also, these are two ordinal. No, they're not ordinal. I don't know why I said that, but anyway, I believe the only two things here that were the only thing significant in this database was that the psychopathy score. So anyway, that was just a quick review of like how you get how you run a correlation. Super easy, right? I want to review one more time how you use that snip function. You've got a couple of choices. You could go down here and tell it to open the snipping tool, and it's going to open this little editor right here. But I want to go snip something new. I'm going to tell it new, and I want this correlation matrix. So I'm going to do that right there. And what you can do is you can save it from here. You can tell it to save, or you could go straight into a document. Like, I'm going to have to open a new one here just for fun. And I can tell it Control V, and look, it's pasted my output there, and I don't have all of the nastiness that's associated with a whole screenshot. So it just looks neater instead of this, like this. Watch. When we're doing these whole screenshots like you guys were putting in your thing the other day, which one looks better? That one or that one? Now, you could do this and you could crop it. So you go over here to crop and you can drag these little black handles until you've isolated whatever it is that you want to put in your document. But it's really small, so you got to remember to drag from the corner like that to resize it. So I'd like y'all to practice using that snip function because it's a really good function. So anyway, if you have any questions, you can go consult YouTube. YouTube's got some great videos on how to like run these things in Jamovi. So play around with it. Make sure you submit that assignment. And again, I have a whole other assignment I'm going to be putting in there with that Respondus kind of looking browser. It's not Respondus, but it's that exam thing. And reach out to me again if you have any questions. All right, guys, this is Dr. Gonzalez. Someone told me that the audio cuts out on the original recording, so I'm trying to go back and record what you're supposed to do for the correlation assignment, and then I'm going to try to paste those videos together. So if anybody was paying attention when they watched the video or opened up the original template, you'll notice that I have now changed spring 2026. That's the only significant, or not even significant, doesn't affect your questions, change that I've made to this template though. So make sure you go in and put your name in. The title of this assignment's correlation assignment number 1. You shouldn't have to mess with anything here in the template. I'm not really concerned about APA style in this kind of an assignment. This is not a report or a paper, so it's no big deal here. So in this assignment, you are working to analyze a set of data that have been collected about a group of 50 children that were diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. As with all of my other assignments that involve data sets or fictional situations, this is not real data. This is totally made up data about totally made up children. So in any case, you'll read that it said, read here, and it says a team of developmental psychologists conducted a study to determine behavioral and emotional traits in a group of 50 children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, ages 7 through 12. The researchers were particularly interested in how social challenges and sensory sensitivities relate to emotional regulation and daily functioning. So, parents of the children completed the following standardized assessments. They took the social responsiveness scale, which measures their social communication difficulties. So, the higher the score, the more impairment they experienced. The next one was sensory sensitivity score. So, this was the frequency of distress due to some sort of sensory input, and it's also on a scale of 0 to 40, with higher being more sensitive or more distress. I apologize. The next one is emotional regulation difficulty score. So this is when someone struggles with calming down, meltdowns, or frustration. Obviously, the higher the score on a scale of 0 to 30, the more difficulty the person experienced regulating their emotions. And then you have daily functioning rating. So this is just where the parents rated 1 through 5 on a scale for daily task management and transitions. So we're assuming that 1 is going to be a lower functioning and 5 is a higher functioning. So your instructions were to use the correlation assignment, PSYC 4370 autism data set, which if you look in Canvas, it was included in the post right there. Download the data set here. Okay. It says use appropriate correlation tests, which is Pearson or Spearman. Report your results and interpret them. Use an alpha level of P is less than 0.05 for all analyses. And that's going to be true for anything you do in this class from here on out. Always assume, unless it is written, that your level of significance is going to be P is less than 0.05. So it's going to be significant when your statistics associated P level is less than 0.05. I want to clarify this because a lot of times students think that they need a P level that's greater than that particular setting right there, and it's the opposite. We want our P value to be less than 0.05 when you're looking at significance. So if it's less than 0.05, it's significant. If it's greater than 0.05, it's not. So here in the scenario, it asks us, number 1, is sensory sensitivity associated with emotion regulation difficulties? Run the appropriate Pearson correlation. Since the question doesn't specify direction, make sure your test is two-tailed, and it says make a scatter plot as well as a correlation matrix. So I'm going to move that over here, open up Jamovi. Okay, I've already opened up my data sets right there. I'm going to go to regression, correlation matrix, and it's asking us to look at sensory sensitivity and emotional regulation difficulties. Okay. So there is my matrix. I'm doing Pearson. I want to make sure that I am looking at a two-tailed. There is a place in here I thought to mark that, but I don't see it. You can also hit flag significant correlations. That helps you. It's going to put these little asterisks here that tell you when you have a significant value. This is what I was looking at right here. Hypothesis correlated would be no direction. If I'm looking at positive or negative, then I would do that right there. So that's how you run that question. The second, let's see what else it said on the assignment there. You're going to paste that output right here, your SNPs, right? Your hypothesis here, it was two-tailed, just correlated, so you know what to do there. Your R is your degrees of freedom and your p-value. So your degrees of freedom is going to be right here, okay? And your R value is right there. And that's going to be true for any of these questions. I'm just showing you where to find it on this first one here. It also asked you to create a scatter plot. So I thought that was in here under this one. Oh, there it is. Correlation matrix right there. So there's your scatter plot, right? And if you unclick densities, you get it looking like that. So that's what you're looking at when you're going to put that's what you're going to snip to put in here. Make your decision. Do you retain or reject? And then interpret the strength and direction of the relationship. You might need to go back to your notes and find the Cohen table that will tell you if it is strong, how strong, if it's weak, if it's moderate, if it's very strong, whatever. All right, for the second question, you're looking at the relationship between communication difficulties and social responsiveness. And you're doing a Pearson for that one. So you're going to move over communication difficulties and you're going to move over social responsiveness. And you're going to do the same thing that it asked you up there in the other question. Go through and answer your questions. You're going to have two sets of hypotheses this time. You're going to find your R and your RS, your degrees of freedom, and your p-value. All right. So what do you do when it asks for a Spearman? Because that's what it asked for on the second one for communication difficulties and daily function. You would move communication difficulties over and daily function, but this time you're going to click Spearman. Make sure you unclick Pearson's because it's going to give you a Pearson's if you don't do that. Okay. You can, if you don't remember what the difference is between those two, go back and listen to the video again for the class or go back and reference your notes. There is a difference between a Pearson and a Spearman, and it has to do with the scales of our measurements. So you're going to go through and look at those questions in the assignment and simply answer them based on that output there. Question 3 is going to ask you about which is more strongly related to daily functioning. Was it social impairment or emotional regulation? You just ran those two. You might have to go back and look at your Cohen table. And then it says explain what the difference in strength might suggest. Remember your R or RS. RS is the R for Spearman, right? So it's going to tell you the strength of relationship. You're going to use that Cohen table from your notes again and snip whatever it's asking you to snip here. I'm not going to go through this step by step because this is the part where I need you to show me that you know how to do this. I mean, I did work that first one up there for you, but question 4 is asking you to write a null and alternative hypothesis for the following questions. You should be able to do this without any problems. This does not require you to use Jamovi. This is just simply applying the skills that you've already learned in this class and writing a hypothesis for it. And then number 5 is a reflection. Why might it be important for educators and clinicians to understand these relationships when designing support plans for children with autism? Write me a paragraph. Tell me why this data and this particular this analysis might help those people who are working, like teachers or therapists or whatever. Make sure your paragraph uses correct grammar, punctuation, and spelling. When you're done with this assignment, save it. As I've mentioned in a couple of other places in this course, some students like to save their assignments as a PDF, and that kind of helps preserve some of the formatting in the assignment. So, how do you do that? Well, if you are in Word, you go to File and Save As, select your location, and then under here, Save as Type, put PDF, and then hit Save, and it'll save your document as a PDF. All right, so if you have any questions about that assignment, please feel free to email me. The second assignment that you have for this week is also a correlation assignment, but it is similar to a kind of a quiz format, but it's not a quiz. All right. It's right here, assignment 2, exploring correlations. If you open that up, it's going to open up the browser that you would normally see when you take an exam. It's not locked, but you're just going to go through it and answer those questions. If you need to reference the Pearson's table for anything, which I believe you will in that assignment, here is the Pearson's correlation table. And if you don't know what that is, you need to go back and read the lecture notes and watch the lecture, or at least look it up somewhere. All right, so if you have any questions, please let me know, and I look forward to looking at your responses when you send them in. Take care.